Hello, and you are listening to the Book Was Better podcast, the podcast where we talk about the book of the film. I'm Luke.
I'm Courtney.
And this week we're talking about Hook.
Hey you, put down the popcorn and turn off the light. It's gonna be alright, my friend. In the end, take my hand. Trust me, the book was better.
Sounds right with the monosyllables, does it?
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. I am definitely hooked on a feeling this week. Courtney Coulson.
No, not that song again. I got it out of my head and now it's back.
A Peter Pan story, but not the Peter Pan story that you know. Oh no, this is no classic piece of literature here. This is what happens when Americans pick up a classic piece of literature and go, needs more baseball.
And the 90s, so there's that happening as well.
Couldn't we just 90s it up a little so that people would understand this?
Yeah, Peter Pan is just so, turn of the century. Can we have, a more 90s radical version of Peter Pan? We'll call him Rufio, put streaks in his hair.
What if Peter Pan was that little bit more extreme? Asks Stephen Spielberg, and I am a fan of Stephen Spielberg. I think he's one of the greatest film storytellers of all time, but we all have our off days.
Yeah.
And for me, even when I saw this originally in the 90s, I struggle with it, I've got to admit.
The sort of the whimsical nature of it feels really forced. You know, when you watch something like E.T. or Jurassic Park, you believe that. Something about those films, you are so in those stories. Whereas Hook, it feels fake.
And I know everybody gets a boner these days for practical effects, practical sets. Everybody's like, hey, it's all practical, this is cool. Here's something where this big pirate town is very practical. But it feels to me like a big musical stage show or something like that. It almost feels limited by the boundaries of the set that they've built. Like, you don't believe the world exists beyond this piece that they've put in a studio.
Yeah, I've always felt that there's never been a Peter Pan adaptation that really captures that scope. I mean, we have things on TV right now like Game of Thrones, which feel bigger than this movie. It's crazy.
HBO's Peter Pan. Only a stone's throw away, I'm sure. And of course, you're a big Peter Pan fan, and just because Lizzie was starting to, get in on your territory when she last week did the entire show dressed as Garfield from a box with a blanket wrapped around her, you're dressed as Peter Pan right now as we speak.
Yeah, Lizzie, you come into my house!
Yeah.
You think you can encroach on my territory? I feel threatened. No, I just thought I'd get into the spirit of things.
Yes.
And I am a big Peter Pan fan. So hopefully I can, this episode kind of came together quickly, so hopefully I can just add a little bit of my pre-existing knowledge of Peter Pan to this.
I do recommend people have a glance at the Peter Pan book if you've never read it for either ever or since you were a kid, because it's actually a lot more quirky and tongue-in-cheek, winking at the adults, almost in a Roald Dahl kind of way. J.M. Barrie has a lot of fun with language, and the parent characters are really amusing. And
it's very ironic.
It's a satire, it's very interesting, and it works on a lot more levels than this heavy-handed thing does. And I think that I love Disney. Disney's fantastic, but something about older Disney is they created these versions of stories, and because Americans don't read books, except for that one book, the good book, because they don't read a lot of books, and they're just studying the same book week after week, they think of the Disney versions as being the definitive versions of the story, which is just absolutely untrue. And in a lot of cases, such as Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan, Pinocchio, it really is a shame, Alice in Wonderland even, because those original stories are so rich and have far more scope. And
there's a bit of darkness to it. Peter Pan has become this metaphor for, the wonders of childhood, and we should cherish that, and it's magical and wonderful. It's pretty dark. It's not about how wonderful childhood is at all.
So, I do recommend that. And at least Disney, with their modern interpretations of things now, like Frozen and Tangled, are really only using that original story is a very, very vague
Starting off
character, starting off thing, yeah.
It's like Kimber the White Lion to the Lion King.
Yeah, except Kimber the White Lion was never a classic fairy tale.
No, I'm just saying that, that everyone, I don't know why, is like, oh my god, Lion King totally ripped off Kimber. It's vaguely the same plot. Calm down, guys. It's like Dr. Horrible and Dr. Steele are not the same thing.
They're very similar names.
Yeah.
And they're lions.
Yes.
But one's white.
Yeah, that's all you need. And one's based on Hamlet or Macbeth or something. I don't remember. I haven't seen Lion King in a long time.
Hakuna Matata.
Yeah.
Which means don't worry about it.
Oh, right. And then there's Jake and the Pirates and the Tinkerbell movies and TV series and whatever the hell. It makes me cringe so hard because it's just, what have you done to my Peter Pan?
Well, we're going to get there. We're going to find out exactly what they've done to our Peter Pan in this particular episode. Now, this is the junior novelization. Apparently, there is a bigger version written by Terry Brooks, who's a famous fantasy author.
Yeah, this one it was only about 100 pages.
Which is great, because the movie's about 2.5 hours, and it's definitely 2 hours too long.
Yeah, I was surprised how long that movie is, and compared to the book especially, because it just flies through it. But, flies. Pun, maybe?
I don't understand what you're referencing. And this was written by Geary Gravel. Now, that is a name. Not since Joan DeVinge have we had such a fine, evocative name. Geary Gravel, American science fiction author and professional sign language interpreter.
Sounds like a name made up by Stan Lee.
After reading this one, I began to wonder if he'd be able to interpret this sign right here.
He's making a
special one for everybody in the room. Now, he's the writer of original works such as A Key for the Nonsuch, Return of the Breakneck Boys. I've been often thinking, when are those Breakneck Boys going to return?
I've missed them.
Missed them so. And he's done some tie-in work with the Batman animated series, including the novelization, I didn't know this existed, of Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, shit. We got to get that.
Might have to look into that one. And the book starts with an actual J.M. Barrie, original author of Peter Pan's quote, which is, "All little children except one grow up," which is bastardized because the original is all children except one grow up. Mm-hmm. But it's closest to the book you're going to get and is probably really the point where you should stop reading. And it's not that Geary Gravel does a bad job. I've got to admit, a perfectly fine writer in terms of what this story has to offer. And he tells the story pretty accurately to the film.
Yeah, actually, he doesn't deviate in any significant way.
And not a bad writer at all, but it certainly doesn't live up to the classic. And by the way, all the chapter titles in this film start with the letter P.
Peter's Promise, Peter and Wendy, Panic, Pixie Power, Pirate Town...
Which,
Pursuit.
I guess means that he really needed to pee.
Papa Hook.
And that's not a homage to the original, which doesn't have chapter titles that start with the letter P, so...
No, it's because it's Peter Pan.
It's just all Gravel, Geary Gravel.
I love
taking the piss.
I love the blurb, though. What if Peter Pan grew up? And what if, on a visit to London, his own children disappeared from their nursery and a mysterious note was left behind, which led Peter back to the notorious Captain Hook? That is exactly what happens in this magical fantasy. Oh well, you've saved me like 100 pages. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff that I'm about to explain, so maybe I don't even need to now.
Yeah. Shortest episode ever.
Here is the beginning.
Maggie Banning closed her eyes and lay very still. She was getting ready to sleep in front of a room full of people.
Ironically, which is exactly how the audience felt. This was Maggie's first appearance in a school play, and she wanted it to be a success.
After all, the role of Wendy Darling in Peter Pan was an important role to play that was very special to the Bannings. On top of that, her whole family was there to watch the performance. Well, almost her whole family.
Clock chimes began to sound from an old tape recorder off stage as the curtain rose.
Maggie opened her left eye the tiniest bit and squinted out into the darkened auditorium.
She could see her mother and her big brother Jack sitting up near the front where they should be.
Next to her mother was an empty seat.
Maggie didn't let it bother her.
She knew that any minute now her daddy would be there.
So, oh my god, it is the old dad is too busy working to spend time with his family movie.
That seemed to be particularly common in the 90s. I don't know why. It was just that era that was, yeah.
I feel like 80% of the books we've done on this show, the dad is too busy to work with his family. There are just hundreds of movies that are like that. And I think it's really ironic because how often do we also see movies where the mum's really awesome and loving because she works all the time, often in multiple jobs, in order to support her family. Like, that's seen as a really noble thing.
Yeah.
Oh, mum's got 2 jobs, she works all the time, what a saint.
Yeah.
Whereas when dad works all the time to support the family, it's what a prick. Quit your job and come and see us in the school play.
What is that? Is it just that women in the workplace is just such a foreign thing that if a woman's able to just do that in the beginning, it's like a miracle?
And it's the thing is, like, if mum works in, like, a 7-Eleven with huge bags under her eyes in order to support the family, everybody's like, she's so wonderful. But if dad has, like, a high-paying job and is doing something really professional, it's like, you prick.
Yeah.
You dirty, dirty prick. How dare you support us?
Yeah, God, if my dad had a job, then I think we'd be like, yeah, good, great. Thanks, Dad. We're very appreciative of that.
Yeah, because that's the thing. At least her dad is a professional, unlike Maggie, who had one job, which was pretend to be asleep, and she opened her fucking eye on stage in front of all those people.
Oh, God. Have you ever actually seen a primary school play?
No, and I will not.
You're lucky.
Because I respect the theatre.
Well, you've got 2 younger sisters, so I thought you might have been dragged to some of that crap, but, yeah, well, I had been in some plays in primary school. I was the Angel Gabriel in pre-primary. That was great. And I was a costume designer a few years ago at my old high school. And I'm watching these, 12 to 14-year-old kids doing Carousel. The famous song from that is Walk On. I cannot listen to that song anymore. Even if Josh Groban sings that song, it's just been butchered for me. It's just, oh God, why do they do it? Why do they do it?
Kids spoil everything. And in the play, Peter explains, this is the play within the film, that the lost boys are children who fall out of their prams when the nurse is looking the other way. But of course,
if Scarlett Johansson was a nanny, that wouldn't happen.
no, well, yes, if you read her extensive diaries, you'll know that she's put up a lot of defences to stop that from happening. But, of course, this is aimed at Americans, so they really need to spell out J.M. Barrie's awesome prose for the dum-dums who are reading this.
She could not imagine being careless enough to fall out of a pram, which her teacher said was a kind of English baby carriage. Just in case you didn't know what a pram was.
Yeah, let's just slow down this classic tale for the dunces in the class.
I think, yeah, perambulator, I think, is what pram is short for.
Yes.
I didn't know that till fairly recently.
Well, you can sit at the back of the class as well. And
I know other things.
And then when her father, Robin Williams, the late, great Robin Williams, does arrive late. Wearing his business... he is both the late Robin Williams and, in this case, the late Robin Williams, wearing his business attire. Maggie squints into the audience, looks at him, smiles, and then turns back to Peter Pan in the play. You do not belong in the theatre, madam.
Disappointment.
Break that fourth wall, why don't you? And speaking of which, fuck this asshole.
I wanted to say, though, Maggie's at least better than Christopher Walken in Peter Pan, the live version. So there's that.
Yeah, that might need some setup for the audience who don't know what you're talking about.
I thought it was fairly well known, but okay, just in case you don't know, there was a Peter Pan live show, which was such a bizarre thing. It was, like on NBC, I think, or one of those stations. And yeah, you've got the actress from Girls playing Peter Pan, which was great.
Alison Williams.
Alison Williams, thank you. And
Not Lena Dunham.
No, that would have been very different. Christopher Walken's corpse as Captain Hook.
You would think that, Christopher Walken as Captain Hook sounds, I imagine, very good on paper, but he was barely present. It was Tommy Wiseau style, just kind of propped up, very slowly mumbling his lines while wearing a whole heap of guy liner. Wasn't really a lot to it. Yes, you certainly could have been forgiven for thinking that he expired prior to the production. But what I did love, the best thing that came out of that for me is, of course, Peter Pan crows. Crows like a rooster. And somebody edited a clip of Alison Williams in Girls getting her ass eaten while crowing like a rooster, which, never hear that the same.
Oh god, yeah, there's a lot of references to crowing in this film. How did you go?
Now, because you completely destroyed my segue.
Oh yeah, speaking of which, fucking
Courtney,
assholes.
Yes. Peter leaned over to smile at his son. How was baseball practice, Jackie? Jack made a face.
It was okay.
He hated to be called Jackie. Sit up straight, his father reminded him. Jack sighed. Could this conversation occur maybe not during the performance?
I know!
Like, what's next? Are you going to get up and try to charge your mobile phone on stage or something like that? This is what poor old flurried professional actor Benedict Cumberbatch is complaining about. He's up there trying to do Hamlet and mortified by Robin Williams in the audience asking his son about how his day was. I mean, like, respect the space, for Christ's sake. And then, if that wasn't enough, investment lawyer and banker Peter Banning, more like Panning, am I right?
Actually, is there a reason why their surname is Banning? Is there a reason there?
He was an orphan and he was given a name and stuff, I suppose.
Oh, okay, they're not trying to be clever in some way.
They are. I mean, it's obviously derivative of Pan.
Yeah.
Then he goes on to ruin the play even further.
When he looked up, he saw Maggie dangling above the stage on a single slender wire. He jumped to his feet in alarm. She could fall, he cried. Heights made Peter Banning dizzy and flying, whether or not it wasn't an airplane, scared him more than he cared to admit. How could the school allow them to make such a dangerous play like this?
Yeah, stop spoiling everything with this selfish foreshadowing, you dick. God. And then, suddenly, a high-pitched squealing sound broke the silence. It sounded as if somebody was trying to strangle a cockatoo. So you don't know about prams, but you know about cockatoos. Which is it, America?
Consistency.
And look, it was a phone call that made the squawking noise, and here are the stakes, basically. Peter and his wretched family are flying to England tomorrow for a dinner, which is honouring grandmother Wendy's work with orphan children. Which basically leads to a rescheduled meeting in the morning. So that means that Peter is going to miss his son Jack's Little League playoffs. This upsets the shit out of Jack. I'm saying, Jack, save your tears for when you're in the big leagues, son.
Yeah.
Till then, shut up. Just enjoy your trip.
Yeah, he gets to go to London. He has a roof over his head. He gets to, I'm assuming it's a private school. Like, gee.
He's very privileged.
Privileged dickhead.
Visit Detroit if you need some perspective, pal. And then the next day at work,
Peter had just finished telling his staff about his plan to convert a wilderness area into his client's dream of a paradise resort.
So, another Hollywood mixed message. Evil people are always turning things into resorts in films. In fact, I think that was indeed the evil plan in Garfield 2 last week.
Yes.
And yet, we also have plenty of vacation films where average families go to wonderful resorts, and it's a good thing. So are they bad or are they good? It really depends on the story
once
they're telling.
It's built, like, you know how you go, I feel bad for animals being killed, but, I mean, this hamburger's right here. It's already dead, so I may as well enjoy it, right?
Everybody loves roller coasters. Everybody loves pools, spas. I just think, let the man do his job.
So, when they make children's movies, is there literally just a list of tropes that they have a big magnet, sheet of magnets on a whiteboard and they're just putting them together?
Blindfold, mix them up, there's your story.
Garfield especially.
Well, speaking of Garfield 2, now our American family goes to England. So, as we learnt from Garfield 2 and a billion more movies before it, that's always a good thing. That always works out well. And they meet Uncle Toodles, who's lost his marbles, Lisa the maid, and Granny Wendy, who they all, except for Peter, believe to be the Wendy from the play, and that this is the house where it all happened. J.M. Barrie was apparently the neighbour, and he wrote about their adventures. I gotta say, I was super confused about Maggie Smith's age in this movie.
She looks ancient.
But she looks how she does now. And I was like, how did you look like that then and you look the exact same now? But she was actually about 52 when they filmed Hook, and it's all age makeup.
Yeah, because I did look her up from other movies at the time, and yeah, she doesn't look like that.
But it's fantastic age makeup because they predicted how she would look now.
That's insane.
Really cool. Peter knew that Granny Wendy was 92 years old, but she still carried herself like a young girl. As she came down the steps, she looked Peter in the eye. "Hello, boy." Peter could feel himself growing uncomfortable again. Like, erection uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's really vague.
She'd have a spark in her eyes. And Peter takes an important business call. Of all dumb places, he chooses to do this in the nursery, where the kids are playing.
Yeah.
They start acting like wild animals around him. And actually, I think what they're doing here sounds pretty rad.
Jack took the shade from the bedside lamp and set it on his sister's head. "This will be great. We can play Shadow Warrior."
I totally want to play Shadow Warrior once we finish doing this.
Yeah.
What do you reckon? Round of Shadow Warrior, get a lampshade on your head. How can it go wrong?
I watched Grand Budapest Hotel the other night, last night I should say, and Rafe Fiennes apparently has a relationship with Tilda Swinton, who looks like 100 years old in that, and yeah, that's where my mind was going with Hook. I've ruined it for myself.
And Peter goes apeshit at his kids for interrupting his call, and the women folk are kind of shocked that he would rather do business than play with his kids. They're like, kids will only be kids once, and, you should be spending time with them and stuff. We go, well, how will they feel when they're all out on the street without any shoes because he got fired from his job?
Yeah.
Come on.
You can't have it both ways, people. And
then the genuinely scary part of the film, I'm really intrigued by this, is totally glossed over here.
I don't know where it is. Wait, is it that one? I feel like we already read that. Okay.
No editing, folks. This is pure classic Courtney action.
Okay, anyway, Jack got into one of the small beds. He felt like a baby, and that's only made him angrier. He doesn't like being an angry baby. Anyway, he pulled his... I don't know why that phrase is hilarious to me. Okay, focus. Don't ruin this.
Don't ruin the one genuine... Remember when I said the one genuine scary part?
What?
I'm going to read. Jack got into one of the small
giggles,
beds.
I'm sorry.
He felt like a baby, and that only made him angrier. He pulled his baseball mitt out from under the pillow. "Hey, where's my special baseball? It was right here." He looked suspiciously at his sister. "The mean, scary man at the window stole it," Maggie said quietly. "There is no scary man," Peter said sternly. I mean, what the fuck? Don't move on. Elaborate from that. Sounds great. You can imagine Dustin Hoffman poking up at the window, like tapping on the window. "Give me your ball, kid." Like that conjures up a pretty creepy image for me.
He's great in this, by the way. I just want to say Dustin Hoffman, Dusty Hoff, is probably the best Captain Hook ever.
It's on my list of things to talk about. I was going to talk about it when he actually
I got too excited.
appeared in the
Should we
book.
just edit? Should I just leave the room?
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. You're doing great. Then when the family go out for dinner, leaving the kids alone with a maid, a dog, and the demented Uncle Toodles, the unthinkable happens. There's some ghost wind, and now this is scary. So read this like it's scary.
Okay.
And take your time. Don't rush the reading.
Don't have giggles like you're a 12-year-old girl. In the den, Uncle Toodles was fast asleep on the couch. He woke up as the wind beat her...
Hard. That's my fault. That's my typing.
Should I take it from the top?
Yeah, they're really scary.
Okay. In the den, Uncle Toodles was fast asleep on the couch. He woke up as the wind beat hard against the doors. He stared at the mantel where the tiny pirate ship rested inside a bottle. "Hook!" the old man screamed. "Hook! Hook! Hook!"
Holy shit, Hook is coming. And yes, when Peter returns, the children are missing. And the maid has been beaten about the head. She is bruised. But there is a note, and it says, "Dear Peter, your presence is required at the request of your children. Kindest personal regards, J.A.S. Hook, Captain." So yes, this of course is the infamous Hook killer. who abducted and murdered many a British child over 3 very frightening winters.
Poor form.
Based on a true story. Also, in the film, Police Inspector Phil Collins...
Was it?
Yeah. Yes, Phil Collins is the police inspector. You're watching this film and then it's like, Phil Collins?
I thought, oh my god, I did not make that connection. Like, that guy looks familiar. I just did not make that connection.
I was reading the trivia and apparently he was originally going to be in the trailer and he said, don't put me in the trailer because people think it's like an important part and it's not. And then when they see me just enter for a minute, they're going to go, oh, he was obviously really terrible, so they cut him out of the film. I just watched it and I thought, I hope his legs don't break. Walking on that. We wasn't on the moon, which makes that kind of pointless.
This is the worst episode ever.
Oh yeah, I think it is. Actually, the reviews are in. Worst episode ever. Yeah.
You're on your own. I'm jumping ship.
Yeah, walk the plank. Granny Wendy, let's just keep going. What? It can only get better, right?
Yeah, sure.
Granny Wendy explains Peter's origins. He basically remembers nothing before the age of 13. She found him as an orphan when he returned from Neverland 50 years too late.
I was an old lady when I wrapped you in blankets, already a granny, with my 13-year-old granddaughter asleep in the nursery. And when you saw her, that was when you decided not to go back to Neverland.
So Peter Pan was essentially defeated by the wiles of a young woman. And that is basically, the moral of this story is that when you put the pussy on the pedestal, you get old.
Yeah.
Everything falls apart.
Also, you do see this scene in a flashback, and yeah, Peter just walks over to this girl who's asleep, never met each other before, and then kisses her on the head, granted, but that's just weird.
And it's Gwyneth Paltrow too.
Yeah.
Surprise Paltrow in
Surprise
this film.
Paltrow, yeah.
Wow, surprise Paltrow!
There's just a lot of cameos in
And
this.
you're like, you're really young. And then, why are you so old now? What's happening? Is everything gone insane? And Robin Williams isn't even with us anymore. I mean, this is kind of a depressing film when you look at it like that.
Yeah, actually watching it, we were watching it around the year anniversary since his death. It was like, oh, this is really sad.
Well, it's like it's a film about really, in a way, defying mortality. But now you watch it and it just reminds you of your fragile mortality. Speaking of people that got old,
Worst episode ever.
as Peter paces the nursery alone, everyone's favourite hooker with a heart of gold, Julia Roberts, shows up as Tinker Bell. Peter stared. A tiny girl stood there. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 inches tall. As he watched, she walked towards him, stepping through an open ink pad on the desk before she marched right up the front of his chest. Her feet left tiny prints on his clean white shirt. Miniature wings sparkled on her back. As she hovered nose to nose with him, she sniffed his face. Few questions here. What are the kids doing with an open ink pad in the nursery? Are they stamping passports? Are they pretending to be part of border security? I'm not quite sure what was going on there.
I had ink pads as a kid, and we would make a shit ton of a mess, but I don't know why we had those, actually. Good question.
Yeah.
Why was I given that?
Or for all your legal documents.
I don't know.
You're doing the accounts.
Yeah, that probably sounds like something young me would do.
I can't help, when I see Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell, I'm reminded of a story by Drew Struzan, the guy that painted all the original Star Wars posters.
All the awesome posters. Yes.
Every awesome poster in the world he painted, and he did the Hook one, and apparently, and Julia Roberts apparently was an absolute shit to work with just in general on this film. But she was the one that kept holding up the poster because she demanded that her face was as big as both Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman on the poster. And he was like, you're a tiny fairy. Like, I have to make you, like, in scale. I have to show you. But she's like, no, I'm a big star and I want to be big on the poster. I mean, come on, figure it out.
And she's terrible. Like, of all the people I would cast as Tinkerbell, that's not it.
And here's Tinkerbell putting her own spin on things as well.
She wandered into the dollhouse kitchen where a Barbie doll was preparing to serve dinner to Ken. Tink sniffed in disapproval and rearranged the figures so that Ken was waiting on Barbie.
She paused, reconsidered, and rearranged them a third time so that Ken was going down on Barbie. Work it, Ken, she whispered. Do the alphabet.
Oh my god.
That's my addition. And so this basically is what happens. Tink, our first fantasy element, she's in the room and she wraps him, Robin Williams, up in a blanket or a sheet or something.
It's a carpet, I think.
A carpet, something like that. And
tiny wings flapped in a blur. Tinkerbell lifted Peter off the floor and carried him out through the nursery window into the cold air night. He was much heavier than she remembered, and she struggled to stay aloft, looking like a miniature stork on her way to deliver a decidedly overgrown baby. Wait a minute, so you're defying physics, but you can't defy physics enough that it's an easy thing to do? But magic?
Look, I indulged your science of Planet of the Apes. I think that science of Hook is a fool's errand. Courtney, I don't think you'll ever resolve that in a way that satisfies you.
I can't turn the science side of my brain off. I just got this, it's Spock in my brain. Like, if this was Inside Out, I'd have basically the crew of the Enterprise in there, and Spock's in the captain's seat. He will not get out of that captain's seat.
So, Neverland. Obviously an author has to describe it. This is Gravel Geary's version. Geary Gravel? I can never... I don't, one of those. Surrounded by oceans on all sides, Neverland was a mixture of craggy mountains and hidden valleys, snowy peaks and tumbling waterfalls. Mermaids played in a lagoon not far from the patchwork settlement known as Pirate Town. Just off the coast of the main island rose the Never Tree. Best episode. This episode. Taller than any redwood, the mighty tree reached towards the sky from its own small islet, safe from irate Indians and pillaging pirates alike. So yes, he's no J.M. Barrie, but Geary Gravel. What a name is Geary Gravel.
It's a mouthful of
Sounds
gravel.
like a robot. Does a perfectly fine job adapting this material. All good. So, yes. Yes.
The Indians, thankfully, don't make an appearance in this. I always find it's such an uncomfortable part of the Peter Pan story. I mean, in the classic novel, it's turn of the century, so Edwardian fiction. Okay, all right, I'll let that pass. But then you put it into a movie, and it's always has a negative response. I don't think it's necessarily impossible to have Native Americans in Neverland and it not be a huge issue. Actually, there was this Peter Pan miniseries. I can't remember. I think it was just called Peter Pan. Rhys Ifans was in it. I don't remember anyone else. Friggin' Charles Dance was in it as well. But yeah, there's Native Americans in that, and they kind of put a little bit of a sci-fi twist on it, because what Neverland is this weird land that doesn't exist in any real place, but other worlds kind of get absorbed into it. So these Native Americans, this tribe has just found itself on Neverland. They've always been stuck there. The pirates found themselves there. So it's kind of like a dumping ground of random things through history. That's a perfectly alright way to do it. In this new Hook movie, Captain Hook movie, Peter Pan movie that's coming out soon, they're white people with weird hairstyles. Yeah.
What if they were Indians and they had a call center? Really cheap labor.
Oh, well, in the fall, instead of a Native American, as the character described, they put an Indian character, and that was clever. So no one's going to get that reference.
Indians, no one understands them. So, Peter, he goes to Pirate Town, and he has to disguise himself as a pirate, and he follows Smee to the docked Jolly Roger, who announces the arrival of Hook. And here is our description of the titular character himself.
With his bright red coat and his big black hat, Hook was the perfect example of a pirate leader. He had a long nose and a thin black moustache, and his eyes burned with a crafty cruelty. His left arm ended in a sharply curving hook that made of gleaming, glistening silver. The pirates applauded wildly.
Now, this was the part where I was going to say that I believe Dustin Hoffman to be just a brilliant Hook, and certainly the best part of the film. He's wonderful.
And I love the way he talks.
We've already kind of covered this, haven't we? But interesting, if you look at the trivia, David Bowie was offered the role.
I don't think that would have worked.
And declined.
Yeah, although I wouldn't mind seeing, well, basically, yeah, the adult Peter Pan played by David Bowie. That would be cool.
That'd be creepy.
It would be weird, like the man who fell to Earth, and then you'd be going in a totally different direction. So you'd have this art house movie instead of an uplifting Stephen Spielberg thing.
Well, this film was intended to be David Bowie versus Kevin Kline. And
Very
I
different movie.
very much do love Kevin Kline. I think the great thing about Dustin Hoffman, though, is he's not afraid to look foolish. It's a kind of a self-effacing role where the character is all bluster and really has some quirks and kind of petulant childlike behaviour.
He just goes for it.
And it's hard to imagine Bowie, as slick as he is, kind of getting there.
Yeah, in the original novel, Hook is described as the most, in J.M. Barrow's own words, the most beautiful man he'd ever seen. And he was sort of modelled after Charles II, the party king. But, yeah, no, well, we recently saw David Bowie in The Prestige. Yeah, no, that's not the right tone at all.
He's not an actor, not
really.
primarily. And also, of course, in play versions, Hook is usually played by the same actor that plays the father, Mr. Darling.
Which gets really weird in this one, because now Peter Pan is the father and the kids are... Oh, well, how does that work?
We'll find out. But Hook has the children captured in a net. Peter confronts him, and Hook is unimpressed that Pan is a fat slob. Hook looked almost sad. "It is you," he said to Peter, "my great and worthy opponent. But it can't be, not this pitiful, spineless, bloated, pasty codfish I see before me. You're not even a shadow of Peter Pan." He turned and walked away. So I guess, Courtney, because I've seen movies before, that Peter will need to laboriously remember who he was, learn to fly, recapture the fun of his youth, and defeat Hook, probably while wearing some sort of green tunic and tights.
And that it'll take, like, years to get him back to fighting shape, right?
A couple of days, probably. But let's just do it. Let's get it over with, because as it stands right now...
Peter put his hand on his back pocket. The pirates stepped back nervously, grabbing their own weapons. Suddenly, Peter whipped out his checkbook. "How much?" he asked as he started to fill out a check.
What the shit? Does he think there's a pirate Piggly Wiggly that they can cash this in? This isn't what Hook wants at this stage.
No banks in Neverland. That's why there's pirates.
So, Peter's got a week to get into fighting shape. This sounds like a fun scene to shoot, though. Just as he was blacking out, a beautiful face appeared in front of him. A mermaid. She took Peter in her arms and gave him a big kiss. Suddenly he felt that he could breathe again, even though he was still underwater. Another mermaid came up and kissed him. Then another. Mermaid's kissing all over his dirty adult body. Sounds amazing. And then Peter needs the help of the Lost Boys. I thought that was exciting, but unfortunately, no Keith Sutherland here. Instead, this is what we have.
The Lost Boys set the barrel upright again. It broke open to reveal a very large Lost Boy with a big belly. He looked at Peter, who was still covered with vines and leaves. "Who's the shrub?" he asked. "Bangarang!" yelled one of the other boys.
Oh, I hope for Peter's sake it's not a gangbangerang. It's just about to start. Bangarang gets yelled out constantly from this point on. It is the Lost Boys version of Cowabunga, essentially.
Basically. It's fun to say, Bangarang.
Bangarang. And the Lost Boys also, they've got great names. Like, there's Don't Ask, there's No Nap, there's Latch Boy. But the best of all, "He doesn't look so fat to me," said the very large boy, whose name was Thud Butt.
I couldn't believe that when you told me.
I know, and I can never remember it. And I was thinking, what's the fat kid's name? I know it's something dumb. And then when I realised it was...
fucking was your guess?
Yes. It turns out it's Thud Butt. And not only is it Thud Butt, there was a Thud Butt action figure.
Yeah.
Which I imagine was the absolute hottest toy at Christmas that year. And the Peter Pan Hook line, the Hook based on this film, toy line, actually went pretty deep. There were vehicles and ships and tree houses.
Really?
And yeah, a whole heap of shit.
That was not in the film.
Which I imagine seems very, very optimistic at the time, that kids would be like, "Oh yeah, I want Thud Butt for Christmas, Santa." And the only main character that we're missing now is the leader of the Lost Boys, Rufio.
Rufio! The boy was dark-skinned, he was dressed in ripped black trousers, and his black hair was streaked with bright red. He had a sword in one hand, and he was riding on a wind coaster, which was a bit like a skateboard, but bigger. It had a mast like a ship, and a large sail made it made from lots of different coloured rags, and ask your mum and dad for one for Christmas.
Yes, it was absolutely a toy. You could have your own Rufio on wind coaster to just run along all the tables that Christmas.
Now, speaking of Rufio, I think I sent you a link to one of these things, I can't remember, but like a Where Are They Now of all the Lost Boys, and, you know, across the board people are going, oh, wow, Rufio is really attractive now. Oh god, what's his name? Atreyu. But Atreyu in Neverending Story, I saw a lot of photos of him as well, and he was quite a beautiful young boy, but now he's like got like the bleach blonde hair, and he looks like a meth addict, and like shitty tattoos. It looks like he's done them himself. It is, wow, that's quite a difference.
I take offence to that, because you're talking about Noah Hathaway, and if people get onto the old Fruitless Pursuits podcast, we interviewed him.
Really?
And he was awesome. He was a really cool guy. I really liked him a lot, and he was very generous with his time and very real. And
but he looks
stuck around and had a... You know, it's like he's just totally LA. He doesn't have to be the like dude that he was in a kids film.
Oh god, he looks so gross.
No, he was awesome.
Well, at least that's that. He's a nice
I love that guy,
guy.
and I had a bit of a chat to him after we stopped recording as well, and he was great. So no, I'm pro Hathaway. All the Hathaways.
All the Hathaways, yeah. But another thing I found is when I was looking him up, there was all these photos of him around Atreyu time, kind of doing these modelling shots in very short shorts, and I just felt like that I'd stumbled onto something I shouldn't have seen.
Could you see his balls?
You might have, if you look closely enough. Good lord, like he's got his legs apart, and there's like these little short. Good lord, what was that all about?
We cannot judge these people by their looks, Courtney. You know?
I saw Team Dante Basco though.
Well, look, unlike J.M. Barrie's Lost Boys, these guys are totally extreme, yo! He skated straight up the wall and went sailing off the skateboard. Somehow he landed on his feet right beneath the basketball hoop. The skateboard came down through the hoop and landed in his arms. Yeah! Wasn't J.M. Barrie radical enough to write about skateboards and basketball?
Who knows? They're missing out, though.
The English are so disappointing. Other Lost Boy names here, Too Small and Jollymon. What do you think your Lost Boy name would be?
Stop sciencing so hard.
Stop sciencing. There you go. Love it. Rufio, do you reckon that's because he was slipping everyone roofies?
Yes.
He was like the Cosby of the Lost Boys?
Atreyu was a cooler name, I'll give it that. Rufio brings up all sorts of connotations.
Oh, and look at this. This is Pockets. He talks like this. What's he doing here if he nod pan? He don't look happy to be here. What? Who are those kids Hook stoled? Give him a chance, Pocket said. You are playing absolute havoc with my spell check, Pockets.
It's a big red line, basically.
Thankfully, he doesn't talk much.
God, I sound like Ed Wynn. I keep going like this.
And then, why fight it? Just enjoy it.
Okay, life's for the living, don't you know?
It's the worst episode ever.
Yes.
May as well wallow in it. The best Hook is, like I said before, that domestic away from the public Hook. Smee and Hook almost feel like an old married couple in some of these scenes when they're by themselves on the ship.
They always kind of were.
And these really are the best films. Best scenes of the film.
Best films of the scene.
They're the best films of the scene.
Best episode ever.
Films I've seen.
Okay. Smee kicked the ship's wheel. As the wheel spun, Hook's bed came down from the ceiling. Smee helped Hook undress. Each time he took a piece of clothing from the captain, he wrapped it on about himself. I don't remember that in the movie, but yeah.
Hook unhooked his bra. And the suicide part is my favourite, where Hook's so depressed he's threatening to kill himself,
Yes.
and Smee has to stop him. That's the best scene. I just recommend, watch that one scene on YouTube, you're done.
Yeah, because we watched that and we're like, oh, this might be worth watching. No, that's just the one. You try and stop me, Smee. Try and stop me, Smee. Don't scare me like that.
And Hook creepily decides his plan is he'll groom Pan's children to be like him. Then he reached under the pillow and handed the captain his teddy bear. The bear had a hook on his left arm, just like its owner. Hook patted the top of the bear's head. "Teddy," he told it, "I've just had a lovely idea. I will not only destroy Pan, but I'll have his own children. I mean, my own children lead the battle." So yeah, he's gonna make Jack wear a wig and shit, essentially.
You know what? It sounds like a Doctor Doom plot.
And meanwhile, the Lost Boys, they are literally grooming Pan.
They had Peter take off his shirt. The Lost Boys thought he looked like a gorilla, not an inappropriate comparison between Robin Williams. Although he's not as hairy here, I will say they seem to have waxed him or something.
They did, it's in the trivia. They had to shave his arms and stuff.
He is a gorilla man. First, they shaved all the hair on his chest off, then they mixed up a big batch of war paint.
And funnily enough, Geary Gravel completely chickens out of writing out that entire insult slinging match between Peter and Rufio at the table. Peter
It's a shame.
gradually got the hang of the game. In the end, he won by calling Rufio a list of foul names ending in paramecium. What a cop-out! There's no, like, fart eating and all that other stuff that comes up in the film.
It was a great scene because it is, as he says, a lawyer trying to out-insult a 10-year-old boy.
I was going to bookmark it in the book so you and I could actually read it, reenact it, and it's not even in there. What a pussy.
I would have been Rufio, by the way.
Then it devolves into a rather strange food fight.
A big lump of green and orange goo went splat in the middle of Rufio's forehead.
Welcome to Nickelodeon's Peter Pan.
Extreme!
And that traitor kid, Jack, is loving the shit out of being Hook's new son, but his sister Maggie is against all this, so she is jailed.
Maggie looked at the other slaves. "Don't any of you remember your mothers?" she asked. No one answered. She picked up one of the little boy's raggedy pillow. She fluffed it and turned it over for him. "Mommies are the cool side of a pillow when you flip it over."
Maggie is a fucking terrible communicator.
What does that even mean?
And you know what I do love, though? That at this point, the book has about 25, 30 pages left, whereas the movie has about an hour and a half. That's good writing.
Yeah, this is about the point where I actually just turned off the film for the night and had to watch it later, because it goes on.
Well, yeah, and why not just race through this crazy shit? Peter wants to steal Hook's hook as a test, so he disguises himself as a pirate yet again, and he finds Hook playing baseball with his son.
Has Spielberg ever made a short movie?
Baseball with his son.
Yeah, why not?
Why do you have to ruin the classics, America? Crack! Jack's bat connected and the ball sailed right out of the park. Peter was stunned. The ball soared like a meteor across the sky of Neverland. Hook jumped to his feet. The old pirate's eyes showed... I don't know what I tried to write here. Showed something as he watched the ball. Then he leaped down from the bleachers. He and Jack slapped their right palms together. Smee put Jack on his shoulders. See, they're basically like, Americans won't understand this classic piece of English literature. Just punch it up. Add baseball, bleachers, high fives.
America, fuck yeah.
Depressed, Peter goes to his charred former home, and this is where he finally remembers his past. So now he can fly again and do all that other stuff.
This is a really depressing scene. The Lost Boys gathered below, staring up in astonishment. Gone was the fat old man Tink had dragged into their midst. Gone was a man with no imagination, the lawyer who had forgotten how to fly. "Peter, Peter, you're doing it," they cried. "You're doing it!"
And he basically celebrates by pantsing Rufio. He cuts Rufio's belt, and Rufio's dacks hit the deck.
But he still got tights underneath, just in case you're wondering.
So they should have called this Peter Pants. And he
Yes.
just goes around and pantses everybody.
Yes.
That'd be wonderful.
Well, it's more American, isn't it?
And,
90s and extreme.
Tink becomes big in this weird scene. She gets like a wish or something, and she becomes a full-size Julia Roberts.
And then she's in a princess dress, and she got longer hair, and it's just,
And she's like, "I love you, Peter," and she wants to like tongue him, and he's like, "I'm married."
And in the original book, Tinkerbell has this weird infatuation with Peter Pan. She's a much older woman who is possessive of a little boy. Like in the original, he's like, what, 5? He's not. I mean, most movie adaptations are between the age of 10 and 15. No, he's supposed to be like 5, and you got this full-grown tiny pixie who is attracted to him. I don't understand why this was okay.
And Tink doesn't talk.
No, well, where
she R2D2 talks.
She R2D2 talks. So yeah, it's communication through the sound of bells. Only Peter Pan can understand what she's actually saying. Apparently, very vulgar.
Would have improved. Well, R2D2 is very vulgar as well.
That's true.
But it certainly would have improved Julie Roberts' performance here.
Do you think that R2D2 and Tinkerbell can talk to each other?
Yes.
Yes.
Providing R2 has had the appropriate software update. So the final battle commences in Pirate Town, and those fucking Lost Boys use a machine gun made out of a chicken, which shoots high-velocity eggs from its terrified vagina, and also
Cloaca.
Tomato guns.
Tomato guns.
But Thudbutt has the best defense.
No!
And this gives us one of the most memorable sequences in the film.
On board the ship, Thudbutt was in the thick of the fighting, curling himself into a ball. He rolled down a flight of stairs and bumped a bunch of pirates right into an open hatch bay.
Yes, this fat kid, rolls into a ball.
It looks really weird in the movie, like this paper mache thing with a costume on.
It's just another layer of humiliation for Thudbutt, basically.
You would never have this kind of fat-shaming character anymore, at least I hope not. Like, the fat kid in, is it The Goonies? Yeah, The Goonies is literally called Fat Kid. Or was it...
Chunk.
No, yeah, he's called Chunk.
But they call him all sorts of names.
No, in, oh god, the one, the...
We did read something where someone was called Fat Kid.
Scary German guy is bitchin'. Oh, what's that movie called? Oh, shit.
Oh, Monster Squad.
Monster Squad, yeah.
We haven't read that. We just watched it.
No, but we did watch it, and yeah, kid's called Fat Kid. So, hopefully that's not a thing we'll have.
You'd think that would be confusing in America.
Well, now most American children are fat, so it's like, there's only the 10% skinny kids out there, right?
And they're all called Steve.
Yes.
Rufio fights Hook. And how can you not be on Hook's side when Rufio is spouting stupid shit like this? Well, looky, I got Hooky, he crowed. Sadly, you'll have no future as a poet, the treacherous Hook told him. Suddenly, he leaped forward. Rufio looked down with surprise as the pirate's sword passed through his body. He fell to the deck. Suck it! That's what happens when you bring a tomato gun to a sword fight, in my opinion.
This is bullshit, because given the logic of Neverland, death is not a real thing. Like, you could... That's the thing. They kill the Indians and the pirates, and Lost Boys get killed all the time. Then the following day, they're fine. Rufio's dead. For real.
Yeah, and everyone's over it in about a sentence.
Yeah!
And then Jack takes off his dumb pirate garb, pledges allegiance to his hairy lawyer father, and Peter goes in for the final duel.
Swift as an arrow, Peter flew up to the gangplank. Peter Pan, the Avenger, is back, he announced as he landed in front of the pirate.
Jesus, Peter. Look, the Avengers aren't going to hire you.
Yeah, I know.
I know they took in Hawkeye, but don't make that... Don't make that fool you into thinking that it's an open door policy. It's not.
He's got more powers than Hawkeye, but is he... he's not as useful.
It's bad PR.
Also, why is Peter Pan so often played by an American? I'm having real difficulty thinking of a version where he was English.
Well, that's the tragedy, isn't it? It's not only that in this sequel that he grew up, it's that he grew up to be an American. And Hook is not killed by Pan, though, but by a giant stuffed crocodile clock tower. Then the whole tower swayed and toppled forward. The croc's huge jaws were wide open. The tower landed right on top of Hook with a loud crashing noise, swallowing him whole. And then a whole gang of bloodthirsty children celebrate this man's death. A man who, basically, his only crimes were wanting to hug his teddy, playing baseball, and killing Rufio in self-defense. So, hard to be too pleased about this murder. And then as Peter and family prepare to fly home, Peter gives his Pan sword to the Lost Boy that he thinks is most deserving of becoming the new Pan, which is apparently a title now.
Yeah, like Batman Beyond, Peter Pan Beyond.
And he chooses, and apparently when they film this, the kids didn't know who he was going to choose, so their reactions are very real.
Yeah, I noticed that.
He chooses Thudbutt. Thudbutt raised the pan sword into the air. Tears were streaming down his round cheeks. Bangarang for Pan the man, he yelled. Hopefully, will never say that phrase again in my entire life. I just thought, why not reunite all these kids? You told them about how mommies are important and how everybody loves their mommy and that they're the most important thing. But they're like, we're going back to our mommy. Fuck you guys. Hope you like eating sand.
Yeah, at least in the original Peter Pan story, they all did get to go back to civilization and get adopted and stuff. Although, I like the idea that it is, well, they did make a reference in the movies, like, what is this, Lord of the Flies? Yeah, it'd be great if these kids are just so feral at this point, there's no hope for them.
What's the worst name, Piggy or Thudbutt? I think it's Thudbutt.
Thudbutt, yeah.
So Peter returns to England. When he gets a call from his boss, he just throws the phone away.
Now he's like, just an asshole who's going to lose his job very soon.
Yeah, I hope he's eligible for unemployment because he's going to have a very hungry family in about a month. Or is the message like, no, you still got to work, but don't be a professional. Don't work in a big business job where they require things of you. Why don't you work at Burger King, Peter? You're there at Burger King flipping burgers, and then if your family are hungry, why not just take a couple out of the bin on your way home?
What is the message of this story?
I have no idea. But here is the end. We're up to the end. Hello, Wendy lady, Peter said back to her. Give us a squudge. He gave her a big hug.
Granny Wendy looked at Peter's face. Boy, why are you crying? She asked him.
I don't know, Peter shook his head. It's just a tear for every happy thought.
And one for me, Wendy asked.
And me, Jack said.
And me, Maggie added.
And one for me too, old Toodle said from beside the open window. He tilted the pouch and poured a small amount of sparkling dust onto the top of his head. As the family watched in amazement, the old man began to rise slowly into the air.
Thank you, Toodles called to Peter. Goodbye. He spun in the air and flew, gracefully, arguably, out the window on his way back to Neverland at last.
Peter, Moira, Jack, Maggie, and Granny Wendy all ran to the window. They leaned against the railing and waved farewell to Toodles.
So, the Lost Boys must be like, where are these old fuckers coming from? Do you have to train him too?
You have to change him too.
Wendy cocked her head at her favourite orphan. Peter Banning's eyes sparkled like a child's as he watched the old man rise above the rooftops of London.
So, Peter, she said to him, your adventures are over. Peter reached out his arms and drew his family in close to him. Oh no, he said. To live will be an awfully big adventure. The end. Worst episode ever.
Fuck this movie and fuck this book.
Though I do know what it's like to not grow up. It's something I can relate to.
We're in Neverland right now.
Gotta ask you, Courtney, was the book better?
No, only because it didn't have Dusty Hoff.
Yeah, that's true. The movie's way too long, but if you fast forward through it, it's not so bad. It has moments where you think this is going to be alright, but then it just falls apart with all this, like, really broad, crowd-pleasing bullshit, like multicolored pie fights and all that other stuff, where you just think, really, Spielberg? Really? Really? Is that what you're going to do, Spielberg?
It feels like he didn't know what it wanted to be. And I was surprised that Robin Williams was not, it wasn't written for him, because the idea of, he's this kind of man child, so they're going to make him play the ultimate man child, but yeah.
And he's too stocky and hairy to be Peter Pan, even an old Peter Pan. It just feels kind of weird and creepy and uncomfortable.
I know, you're looking for someone built kind of like Ben Whishaw if you want adult Peter Pan.
Do you remember there was that Peter Pan guy on the internet? Like when the internet first came through, his name's Randy or something like that. And he dresses as Peter Pan. And I remember at the time, in the early days of the internet, he was like the weirdest thing imaginable to me. I was like, what is this? What a freak! Look at this guy. Now, I reckon he's not even in the top, 10,000 weird things on the internet. Now, now if someone, linked it, I'd go, oh yeah. I wouldn't even think twice.
Yeah, because you see dorky cosplayers all the time.
And he's just like, oh yeah, he's a performer. But now, the internet's a far darker and scarier place. So it just goes to show that we all grow up.
Yes.
Eventually.
And we get traumatized and jaded by the internet.
What a segue. Now, look, nothing particularly useful on Amazon. The reason is, I think Terry Brooks, who wrote that adult version, has a lot of fans who claim to have read all his works and love him, but are too illiterate to realise that they're posting the reviews of Terry Brooks's book on the Geary Gravel page. So most of it was about Terry Brooks and not pertinent to this conversation, but this line bugged me. I thought this book was wonderful. Not only would Disney himself be pleased, but the original author of the Peter Pan books would also be pleased. What a fucking turd. Why would you even... What does Disney have to do with anything? Because Disney interpreted it once? He's now the, primary person in charge of Peter Pan?
Fuck you.
Peter Pan, a piece of English literature that predates Disney by a lot, that they should be worried about the Disney version?
It'd be like if they do another adaptation of Lord of the Rings decades from now and they go, you know what, Peter Jackson would be proud of this, and also whoever the hell wrote the original one or whatever.
J.R.
Some asshole.
Jr. Tolkien Jr. So there we go. That's our episode, Courtney.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you guys like it or not, you get what you're given. You eat what's on your plate.
Yeah, thank God it's not a Patreon episode.
That's right. So don't rate and review this one.
No.
Listen to last week's Garfield 2. That was excellent.
Yeah, I have let you all down.
No, we tease. This was excellent.
I had fun with this. I just felt like I was really unprofessional because I had giggle fits and I got distracted.
Look.
And
They knew what this was.
Yes, I have ADHD.
And it's free. It's a bit of fun. It's you and I, look, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, choosing to spend some time delivering this to a belligerent audience. I mean, that is reward enough, really.
It is true. This is the best way to spend a Sunday.
So, fuck them in the ears, is what I say. And please listen to our other shows.
Please!
FP Cast, every Monday we reviewed Man from U.N.C.L.E. this week.
That looks cool.
It was cool.
Yay.
It was fun. And
good to see Armie Hammer has recovered from Lone Ranger.
He was really good too. And we talked about all this other news that's leaked through this week, especially a lot of Star Wars stuff, all very exciting. And I found out that the Blu-ray for Age of Ultron has been moved forward, so Escarjo a go-go next month, it looks like.
Oh, yes.
And, of course, go through the Book Was Better archives. You can find out everything that we're doing at fruitlesspursuits.com or geekvision.tv. And, yes, you can be a Patreon supporter. Patreon.com/fruitlesspursuits. $5 a week will get you some extra content, some BWB TV. The newest one is Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and it is a very fun episode. It's Jacinta and I talking about Sabrina and a tiger and all sorts of crazy bullshit.
You know how you're having like an existential crisis about Book Was Better? Like,
yes.
Why am I doing this?
Yes.
Have I changed your mind about that?
Yeah, sure, certainly. Now everything looks very rosy moving forward. And next week, I believe, is going to be Jacinta back, and we're going to be doing George of the Jungle.
Oh, no.
Brendan, never say no to anything, Fraser's classic. I did watch that film. Wow, what a piece of shit. Spoilers.
But there's Tarzan, and Tarzan's public domain, so why make a rip-off of something that's public domain?
Because it's not. It's George of the Jungle is a famous Rocky and Bullwinkle era cartoon.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So I know something that's even older than that, but I don't know that. Alright.
Yeah. So it's an adaptation of the classic cartoon.
Oh, well, that makes slightly more sense than it just being this terrible Brendan Fraser vehicle that it shouldn't have existed in the
No,
first
but
place.
you're not the only person to think that. I've heard other people say that. They think that George of the Jungle is its own thing, but it's not. It's a cartoon, one of those old Jay Ward cartoons.
I like Quick Draw McGraw.
Yeah. He's a horse with a gun, which is pretty cool. Like, Brave Star had a horse with a gun.
I think I just like it because Mum calls me Baba Louie, so yeah.
There we go.
Bit of trivia about
Oh,
me.
yes. No, there was something else I wanted to say before you got me thinking about horses and guns and all that sort of stuff.
Lone Ranger?
No. Focus. Stay on target.
No, never.
Stay on target.
No.
Lizzie and I had a conversation after we recorded Garfield 2, and this is something that Jess brought up, quite a long time ago before the baby came into place and selfishly ruined everything. But this idea of doing, it would be small, but doing some sort of live Book Was Better event.
Ooh.
And it's something I've always been really keen to do. I've got some ideas, and I would like to target it at less I've got a theatre background, but less the sort of theatre or comedy people, but more the kind of convention goers. Pick something that's a really notoriously bad nerd property, something like Halle Berry's Catwoman.
Battlefield Earth.
And get into a nice, intimate space, something like the Velvet Lounge.
Yeah.
And put on a bit of a show. And not just the live podcast, but maybe also organise some other things, tie into the whole Fruitless Pursuits family thing. So if people are listening and they're in Perth and they think that's something that they would be interested in, maybe it's something that can grow. I've got some ideas for maybe some people that might be interested in sponsoring, helping promote the whole thing. Then let us know. Let us know your thoughts about that, because I think it would only need 50 or so people to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, that would be fun. Count me in. We can do live performances of my Fantastic Four movie script. Yeah.
So we'd have some stuff. So yeah, that's the idea. So I don't want everyone to just mull over that. It came about because next week, and you and I and Jacinta and Suzanne and a couple of friends who also happen to be listeners and who we communicate to a lot through the Facebook group page, which I recommend everyone to join to discuss these things. We're going to a DC versus Marvel quiz night.
Hell yeah, I'm going to be there.
Which is going to be a lot of fun. And, that group came together on the boards. And that's going to be really cool. And it was like, yeah, this is fun. And we could only have 8 people at the table, but there were so many others as well. I thought, oh, this person would be great. This person would be great. So, getting a little bit more involved in reaching out to that community and doing things and hanging out with people and doing some fun stuff live, I think would be really cool.
We gotta work on that. Well, I gotta work on my jumpsuit. I made a uniform, a Fruitless Pursuits uniform for Luke. I do have everything ready to make my own. I've just, a million other things. But yeah, because if we're gonna be out in public and stuff, we gotta, represent.
I've definitely got some ideas, which I'm gonna stop recording now, and then you and I can talk about some of those specifics.
Yeah, what are you guys still doing here?
Yeah, get out. This is private now.
Yeah, go away.
If you say the thing, they'll disappear.
Oh, alright. Well, then catch you on the flips and shit.
Jumanji.